In this video, I will be sharing with you some things you need to consider when figuring out when to water your plants using your own judgment. Make sure to stick until the end because I will be sharing with you some practical tips to help you figure out if it's time to water your plants. Watering houseplants depend on different factors. You need to consider three things: the type of plant, environmental conditions, and root to soil ratio. Different plants have different water requirements. Some plants are thirsty plants and some plants are drought resistant. As I've been saying in my previous videos, in general, plants that have thicker leaves retain more water and they would want the soil to be dry first before you water them. This is why succulents and cacti are watered sparingly. Some plants like ferns, phytonias, and caletheas like moist soil, so they need to be watered more often. But remember that moist soil does not mean that the soil is drowning in water. The soil shouldn't be soggy, so don't overwater. The frequency of watering also depends on the environmental conditions because this affects how fast the soil dries up. Depending on where your plant is located and the amount of light it receives, the soil may dry up faster or slower, and the plant would need to be watered more often or less often. Different seasons and weather conditions also affect how fast the soil dries up. During hot summer days, the soil dries up much faster. You know how you get thirsty more often during summer? It's the same with your plants. So always consider the season you are in when thinking about how often to water your plants. Another thing to consider when watering plants is the type of pot you are using. Terracotta pots are made with a porous material which helps dry up the soil much faster as compared with plastic pots which keep the moisture in. This means that your plants in terracotta pots may need more frequent watering than your plants in plastic pots. Root to soil ratio also dictates how often you should water your plants. When there are more roots than soil in the pot, then your plant may need more frequent watering because there is less soil to keep moisture in. The opposite happens when there is more soil than roots in the pot. More soil means there is more moisture kept in the pot and thus should be watered less frequently. Now let's talk about some practical tips to help you figure out if your houseplants need watering. Once you are able to understand the water requirements of your plant, whether they need more frequent watering or less frequent watering, it's now time to figure out if they need to be watered right now. Like right now. The first and the easiest test you can do is the visual test. Your plants can actually tell you if they need to be watered. So if they're limp and drooping, then they definitely need to be watered. Some plants can be so dramatic when it comes to this. Peace lilies and phytonias to name a few. Succulents can also show signs of being water deprived. If you see that the leaves are wrinkled, then it's time to grab that watering can and give your plant a drink. You can also look at the soil to see if it is moist. Depending on the type of soil, you can see the difference in color when the soil is wet and when it's dry. However, an even more reliable way to know if your plants need watering right now is to do the finger test. If you have a regular houseplant that needs average moisture level in the soil, usually the reference is that the top 2 inches of the soil should be dry. When you stick your finger in the soil, try to feel if the soil is still moist. It will be a little challenging to decipher this at first, so try to stick your finger in soil that has just been watered so you have a comparison. When you remove your finger from the soil, and there are some soil that's stuck to your finger, then the soil is still moist and it's not yet time to water. When nothing is stuck to your finger, then it means the soil is dry and it's time to water. If you don't want to stick your finger in the soil because you're scared of unknown creatures living in there,
don't worry, I won't judge. I was also scared in the beginning.
Then you can opt to use a wooden toothpick or any stick that's wooden and stick it in the soil. to know whether it's dry or still moist. Just stick the toothpick or stick in the soil for about 30 seconds. You will know if the soil is still moist if the toothpick absorbs water and changes color. If you want a more definitive answer whether you need to water your houseplant right now or not, you should just get a moisture meter. When you stick the device in soil, it will tell you if the soil is still wet, moist, or dry. Make sure to water depending on your plant's needs. Here's a bonus tip for you. If you're just starting and you have a few plants, then you can take note of the plants you just watered and just take note of them and write it on a calendar so you can have a quick reference as to when you watered your plants. After a few months of doing this, you can go back to your notes and check if there's any pattern as to when you water your plants. During summer, did you water every day or every other day? Now you have your personalized watering schedule. Question of the day: which test are you going to try next? Comment below, I'd like to know. Give this video a like if you got value out of it. Keep on falling for foliage and watch more plant videos here.